Alright boys, welcome back to Bettrmma, the best ASMR on MMA YouTube. But more importantly, the best picks and predictions on MMA YouTube. We are coming at you guys with UFC 301 picks and predictions. We're going to jump right into it with the first fight on the card. Alessandro Costa versus Kevin Borjas. Now, this is a very good fight. I think the odds reflect how close this fight is going to be. All in all, I think Alessandro Costa is the stronger, more athletic fighter, but Kevin Borjas has some very quick punches on the feet, so I could see him having the possibility of cracking Costa, but I think Costa's big overhand right is going to deter Borjas from being able to start teeing off with his straight punches. I really like Borjas' style for the flyweight division. He goes for flying knees at opportune times. He tries to copy the Jeremy Stephens flying knee knockout that Jeremy Stephens got over Dennis Bermudez. And it's a very smart thing to do when your opponent has got you backed up against the fence and they're starting to load up with shots. It's smart. It's like you can't really go left or can't really go right without getting hit one way or the other. So you just fly straight up the middle with a knee. I like seeing fighters that go for it like that. Borjas is also not afraid to throw front kicks up the middle or 360 roundhouse kick, and he does it enough to where he's learned how to actually implement it in a fight. I think Alessandro Costa is going to be able to dominate Borjas in the grappling once it gets to the ground, and I think he'll be able to deter a lot of Borjas' offense simply with having heavy hands and a great overhand right. So I'm going to go with Alessandro Costa, but best case scenario, Kevin Borjas opens up the card with a highlight reel knockout. Next up the card, Ishmael Bonfirm versus Vince Pichel. Now, Vince Pichel is 41 years old. Ishmael Bonfirm, on the other hand, is 28 years old. Ishmael Bonfirm, being in Brazil, he's going to show up like the last time he was in Brazil against Terrence McKinney. And from a technical aspect, I think he's going to be able to out-grapple and submit Vince Pichel if it ever gets to the ground. So a grappling-based game plan would not be a good idea for Vince Pichel. And I also think Bonfirm has more finishing weapons on the feet. And I also think he's the faster, stronger striker. Ishmael Bonfirm should get a KO TKO in this fight. Moving on up to Mauricio Rufy versus Jamie Mullarkey. Now, I'm going to go with Mauricio Rufy in this fight. Jamie Mullarkey has unfortunately been knocked out too many times in his career. Mauricio Rufy is a 9-1, 27-year-old prospect. Tall, good frame for the division. He's got some dangerous kicks and some knockout power on the feet. I think he's just going to out-aggression Jamie Mullarkey in this fight because at this point in Jamie Mullarkey's career, he can't feel comfortable getting into a dogfight. So I say Rufy putting on a show for his Brazilian fan base. Moving on to 10-1. Last fight on the early prelims is Joaquim Silva versus Drakkar Klose. Drakkar Klose is a solid UFC veteran. But what I question in this matchup for Drakkar Klose is really where does he outskill Joaquim Silva? Now, Drakkar Klose has been able to look good in his last 3 fights because he's faced guys like Joe Solecki or Rafa Garcia. Joaquim Silva, as we've seen, has some very dangerous hands in the way that he's been able to clip guys like Arman Tsarukyan. I don't think Drakkar Klose really does this fighting for anything other than a paycheck. And I think Joaquim Silva, having the motivation of the crowd and the motivation to move up in his UFC career, he is going to put it on Drakkar Klose, and the Brazilians are going to get a clean sweep on the early prelims. Moving on to the prelims, starting off with one of the best personalities, if not the best personality in the UFC, my guy, Jean Silva. I want this guy to walk out to DMX, What's My Name, every single time he fights. I love when he's barking in the octagon. He's an absolute animal, and he's a character that we all deserve to see. And I think William Gomi is a great matchup for him. William Gomi is a bitch. John Silva isn't losing to any French guy. And Lucas Tracy, picked William Gomi for some odd reason, and that just confirms for you. If you don't know anything about MMA, of course you would pick William Gomi in this fight. John Silva is the real fighter, and like I said in my last video, guys, real fighters win real fights. So I've got John Silva getting the win here via any way he wants it. Could be a KO on the feet, ground and pound victory, a submission, or a decision. John Silva is not walking out of that octagon without the W, okay? And he's going to be barking in the microphone after he wins this. Now, next fight up on this card, another banger. Elvis Brenner versus Miktebek Odoblai. I'm going to be honest, I love the Miktebek Odoblai memes. I think the guy is a UFC legend already, just from his fucking face. I seriously can't look at this guy and not crack up. In all seriousness, I think he's going to be able to out-grapple and take down Elvis Brenner in this fight. Or Elvis Brenner is going to have one of the biggest moments and he's going to clip Odoblai with something crazy and put him out. Because Elvis Brenner is the definition of a dog, man. His fight with Guram Kutateladze is one of my favorite fights of all time, as it should be for you guys. That's a fight that you gotta show your kids one day. Elvis Brenner, I would say, has about a 35% chance to be able to do this. But I do think Odoblai is very, very difficult to finish. We've seen him put through the ringer against Medic. I think from a stylistic matchup, Odoblai has the ability to control the fight, and he'll be able to get away with a decision or a submission here. Now, this is my favorite fight on the card. It's the fights like these that I live for, guys. They got my boy, Joe Anderson Brito, going up against the little nerd from England, Jack Shore. All you Jack Shore fans, you guys want to know my prediction for this fight? Let me tell you my prediction real quick. Yeah, we smoking on that Jack Shore pack come Saturday night, guys. You guys already know. I'm smoking on this Jack Shore pack all week, matter of fact, bro. Because I already know my boy Joe Anderson about to go in there and do this boy bad. He's about to do Jack Shore dirty. And Jack Shore, this is my question to you, man. How you want to get it? You want to get it on the feet? You want to get knocked out? You want to try and shoot and then get submitted real quick in 90 seconds? Like, how you want to get it, man? That's all I'm saying for this fight. If you guys are picking Jack Shore in this fight, you're smoking crack. Straight up. Welcome to the highlight reel, Jack Shore. That's all I got to say for this fight, guys. Jack Shore is going to be welcomed onto the Brito highlight reel. If Jack Shore is lucky, he gets submitted in the first round and he doesn't leave too bloody. But Joe Anderson Brito is going to do him bad in wherever this fight goes. Joe Anderson Brito by devastating highlight reel finish. Now, moving on to the main card. Paul Craig versus Caio Borralho. Now, Paul Craig just got the piss beaten out of him by Brendan Allen. Really bad performance from Paul Craig. But I do think Paul Craig is going to be hungry. I honestly think Paul Craig is going to have the jiu-jitsu advantage here. But if Caio Borralho is just able to put the pressure on Paul Craig on the feet, then we could see Paul Craig getting put out early, and this could be a TKO finish for Caio Borralho. I'm not so confident in Caio Borralho's striking, though. I've always seen him sort of as a not very technical, not very good defense when he's throwing his punches, and he doesn't seem to have the best cardio either. It's hard for me to see him putting the pressure on Paul Craig because of that. So I think Paul Craig, being the sturdy veteran that he is, he's going to be able to withstand Caio Borralho's punches, and he'll be able to get this on the ground at some point and submit Caio. Next up on the card, Michel Pereira versus Ihor Potieria. I'm going to go Michel Pereira all the way on this. I think Michel Pereira is very fast for the middleweight division. Ihor Potieria has some good speed himself, but I think Michel Pereira has a more diverse kicking game, especially with his kicks to the body and his punches to the body, and that's going to break Ihor Potieria's base, and it's going to allow Michel Pereira to get into his rhythm faster and gain momentum throughout the fight. So I see Michel Pereira getting an easy 3-round decision here, or pulling off a classic Michel Pereira highlight reel KO. Moving on to Anthony Smith versus Vitor Petrino. See, I even forgot that Anthony Smith was ranked. I kind of forgot that he was on this card for a second, because it's hard to remember Anthony Smith, you know? I'm worried for Petrino because Lucas Tracy is picking him, so now I feel like, oh god, Lucas Tracy picked Petrino. Now Anthony Smith is going to show up like a world beater and just put a performance of his lifetime on Vitor Petrino. But in all reality, I don't think that's going to happen. If you look at them side by side, I definitely did this a lot as a kid watching MMA. And as you watch MMA and become a more hardcore fan and get further into the sport, you sort of let this childlike way of judging the fighters go. But let's just look at Anthony Smith next to Vitor Petrino for a second. Anthony Smith, substantially older, substantially less in shape than Vitor Petrino. Vitor Petrino is here in Brazil. He's trying to do this as a tribute to his country, and he's a young man who's trying to make a better life for himself in the future. Anthony Smith does this as a day job, and then the rest of the year he's drinking with Michael Bisping on Believe You Me, Moscow Mules and Bushes at 10 a.m. in the morning. That's who Anthony Smith is. Vitor Petrino is going to show up at UFC 301. He's going to get, I would say, probably a second round submission against Anthony Smith after perhaps clipping Anthony Smith at one point in the first or second round because Anthony Smith's chin is gone. Petrino is going to be made to look very good because of how much Anthony Smith is deteriorating. So Petrino by however you want to pick it. Next, the co-main event, Jonathan Martinez versus Jose Aldo. Jonathan Martinez is a great scrap for anybody in the bantamweight division. Jonathan Martinez is of course known for his leg kicks and his pressure and his ability to stick on you in the grappling. Jose Aldo has some of, if not the most legendary takedown defense in the history of the UFC. And if there's anybody who should be able to deal with leg kicks and fight that battle and win that battle against somebody like Jonathan Martinez, you would expect it out of the pedigree of somebody like Jose Aldo. I think this entire fight just depends on what type of Jose Aldo steps into the octagon. And more directly, does Jose Aldo really step into the octagon? Or are we seeing a man who's taken a lot of time off, isn't necessarily in the same groove of training as he has been in the last few years? Jose Aldo looks good. We haven't really seen any pictures of him like Jose Aldo is really enjoying retirement and he's like putting on a whole bunch of weight or anything. So I think Jose Aldo is going to come out here, rip Jonathan Martinez with liver shots, pop him with jabs, because people forget, after he lost to Peter Yan, he went to, I believe it was the Brazilian Military Boxing Academy, and he seriously leveled up his hands. Aldo's jab is real. Aldo's boxing is real. He fought Rob Font, and everybody thought, oh, Rob Font was the boxing guy. Jose Aldo showed that he could outbox that fool. And as we know, he's the better all-around MMA fighter. So I'm going to go with Jose Aldo here, most likely by a decision. Stepping up to the main event, flyweight title bout, Alexandre Pantoja versus Steve Erceg. Look, guys, MMA YouTube is on my dick. MMA YouTube has been riding my dick for the past 2 weeks now. I put out the first Steve Erceg video because it was 30 minutes after it got announced. I put out a video, I was in the middle of cooking, and I said, look, everybody's saying, what's a Steve Erceg? Blah, blah, blah. Only 2 years in the UFC. Only 3-fight win streak. Bro, it's flyweight. Take a look at the flyweight top 10 right now. Royval, beaten by Pantoja twice. Moreno, beaten by Pantoja 3 times. Amir Albazi is hurt and can't get in the cage. Same thing with Kai Kara France. Mateus Nicolau just got fucking slept. Manel Kape injured and can never get in the cage and already lost to Pantoja. Muhammad Mokaev made everybody fall asleep his last fight. Alex Perez just knocked out Mateus Nicolau, but that shit just happened. Tim Elliott is legitimately probably one of the tougher fights for Alexandre Pantoja right now, just based off of his veteran medal. But Steve Erceg, you guys have already seen my video. Steve Erceg has to fight a perfect fight, and that's be on his bicycle for 5 rounds, jab, front kick at range, set up your hooks, be smart, defend the takedowns, keep Alexandre off your back and off your neck, and he's got to fight a perfect fight for 25. But is it possible? Absolutely. Because Alexandre is 5'5". He's going to have to be leaping in with 2 or 3 shots to set up his shot that actually lands. So Alexandre Pantoja is going to be gassing out very fast in this fight. It's going to nullify his rushing in combos because Steve Erceg is tall enough where he can work the range, pull counter, and put Alexandre down to the ground. I don't expect this to be an early KO for Steve Erceg, but I expect this to be more like in the 4th or 5th round when Alexandre Pantoja is seriously starting to gas. Once Steve Erceg is putting on the pressure with his jab and his front kick and his boxing combinations, and he's moving out of the way, retaking the center. When Alexandre tries to retake the center, rush in with his combinations, Steve Erceg is going to be out of the way, evading, cutting an angle. Once Alexandre starts breathing heavy for air, Steve Erceg is going to hit him with a bop bop 1 2 3 combination, put Alexandre down to his knees. He's going to stumble. He's going to fall back to the cage. And Erceg is going to put him out very much like Charles Oliveira put out Michael Chandler. That's my official prediction for this fight. Can Alexandre go in there round 1 and submit Steve Erceg? He could probably do that. Let me just give Lucas Tracy a lesson real quick because he is a casual in denial. It's just very funny watching him because he's a casual fan who's in denial. He thinks he's a hardcore fan just because he watches MMA a lot. Let me tell you something, Lucas. MMA does not make sense. So he's saying, oh, if you pick Steve Erceg, it doesn't make sense. MMA does not make sense, my friend. Predicting an MMA fight is almost like looking at a solar eclipse. You can't understand what you're looking at yet, but all you can really see are the glimmers of light around the edge, and then over time, what's behind it will be revealed. Real MMA fans understand that we have a fight on our hands at 301. Steve Erceg, by round 3, I guarantee it, is going to have the commentators going crazy. Oh my God, Steve Erceg rocked him. All it's going to take is one moment in the late 3rd round, or it could even happen in the 2nd round, where Alexandre is breathing heavy. Steve Erceg just cuts a quick angle, pops him real quick, and then we see Alexandre go on wobbly legs for a second, and all the commentators are going to go, Steve Erceg's going to shock the world. Look at the thumbnail of my Steve Erceg video. I said, don't be surprised. So when UFC 301 comes around, guys, you already know Bettrmma MMA won't be surprised. But this is why you listen. Bettrmma MMA, giving you the best MMA takes. Like the video. Comment something on the fucking video. Subscribe. Bettrmma MMA, we are blacklisted. We are shadow banned. But I don't give a fuck. Peace.